Good morning, everyone. I would like to start off by extending my warmest greetings and tashi deleks to everyone, to our friends here at the Houston Police Department. We're extremely happy to be visiting with you today, and thank you for inviting us.
police number shiragi tiyune kuishabda ani shiragi pige khaso re chedong chuyus namgyune chedong that I look up to.
So once again, I'd like to express how happy I am to be here, to be meeting with all of you at the Houston Police Department. And I want to express to you how in my everyday life, when I think of the police, I really think of you with the greatest esteem and respect. I really look up to each and every one of you.
가이스나 직비게 ngaranju 답변한 휴스턴도 차츠베이나 시디 팅자 아니 직비게 ngaran 상모로 비게 가두이네 셈 흘려지 로투야티 아니 캬안주기 깔레게보다 캬안주기 아니 비게 송겹이 되올 때
So the reason why I have such esteem and respect for you is because coming to a city like Houston and seeing how calm and happy and safe a city this is, really I understand that this is all because of you, because of the work that you do to protect the community. So the fact that we're able to go outside and to enjoy a sense of safety, to go around with a relaxed state of mind, this is really what you're doing for us. So we thank you for that.
가서 오래 완전 비게 가서 오래다 지 DC 7월을 친제 semna 대체 남자 주네 오다 강의 스텝에는 남상 police 되어서 예산백이 semna에 대지기다 지 가서 오래 계속해서 수 이시체세 와 수수 이치에서 내가 뭐지 말아 진짜 뒤에서는 아주 police meeting 원래 아주 와싱고 말아 bener mijikange chebine namsa police khawadan dizane police yonghe de kange chedi robo chingni mod shingo marwa ine kona police imba sam darangi namsa jikge modash dabine de dana shinji ni ju kange khandeji ta mi ji zo kange damada yorwa de iji chen leke chesda kyang chang yoris.
So, because of the work that you do to protect the community, also, if one of us goes outside, if we encounter some kind of difficulty, if we feel some kind of fear or anxiety, we know that we can count on you. We know that if we call you, you will be there for us. And you don't know any of us, right? We're all strangers, right? You don't know the people that you're helping personally, but we know that we can count on you if we have some kind of accident or something happens to us out on the street. We can call and we can count on the fact that you will be there. So this is a kind of faith and belief that we have on our part in you. And this kind of faith and belief, this doesn't come easily. But you guys are strangers and you're there to help us, and we have that faith in you.
I can't really need to get million over chair, W chair, to have some number, down and sing to get a gatamane, to get Susu Chetuya and the Chine. Tana and the Susu saw there. That short right? And the mission the safety, the mission better that count to saw engine, learn down to this you want. Shirag money was a chimney chas. How you like your chas?
So the fact that you, each and every one of you, is willing to dedicate yourself to protecting this community of people that you don't necessarily know personally is incredible. It obviously comes from a very deep intention of deep altruism, deep compassion for others, a 100% dedication to helping the people in your community, to the extent that you're even willing to give up your own life for others. This is absolutely amazing, absolutely fantastic.
말아줘 아니면 imagine 체다스 기시 police 큰 매베체 아니 휴스는 너무 첨부 되지 여비는 그지 니만지기네 켜트가 하우스라를 상도스 다들 뭐에 내주 던 쉐기스 니 쉐야 돼.
So if we were to imagine a world, a city of Houston without the police, what kind of city would this be? Right? Even just one day without the police, what would happen? Right? So when we think about that, we really understand the incredible importance and benefit of the police department. And I'm not speaking, just theoretically here. This is reality. Right? This is the actual situation. We need you.
세상에 뭐에 내주 세티 마음도 정말 원래 제국이어라 아니 원래 제국으로 왔어. 원래 마음 accept.
So since this is the reality, this is the fact of the matter, this is something that each and everyone must simply accept.
세상에 장 상황로리야 아니 미세 구지다 아니 지금에 다른데 자야 돼 가보면 또 쓰자니스.
So again, I'd like to express how incredibly honored and thankful, grateful I am to be here, to meet with every one of you. And it's really with that kind of mind that I'm here meeting with you. I'm very happy to be meeting with you.
아니, 어떻게 체? 다들 아주 오래 다른 게 주시도부터 제비는 아니 compassion 다 meditation 왜 디톤에 다 뭐대 쉬고 있어래 제단디 인디자네다 어떻게 쉬어체 다 지난 아주 넘버 3집에 추 돈이네 추 매비네 아주 지난 게 지된 저 근데 제비네 다 봐. 아니 지금 이게 저 근데 잠바이네 아니 꿀론도 쉬우지 계속 저기가 됐어.
So the topic of today's talk is meditation and compassion, right? So that's what we'll be speaking about today. But generally, as a preliminary to this talk, something that we can think about is the fact that whether we are a practicing Buddhist or not, no matter what we do, right, in our everyday lives, ultimately motivation is the most important thing.
이 나네 아니 지금 가서 오래 말한 주다 계획 잡았으네도 가다 자와 봐 아니 지금 이게 밀레 팸에 자와 아니 답도도 지금 이게 신뱅기 자와 되게 근데 중앙이네 아니 꿀롱 백해져 그랬어.
And so within that, when we are engaging in Buddhism, we talk about virtuous actions, but we can think about that in terms of actions that are of benefit to others. So any kind of action that we perform for the welfare of other beings, this is something in which motivation plays a very important role.
꿀롱디 상부직다 꿀롱디 넘버 타고치기 토네 아니 가라주다 리부지점 리부 가데지점이네 아니 지그예로와 마이 번에 시장고 마야 루이기 번에 셴을 그거체야 다나 신 지그게 셴을야다 지그게 로바체야 돼 되게 근데 제비네 꿀롱디 넘버 타고치다 꿀롱 상부직 토네 제비나 안디 그소에 자와디야 아니 개와지나 아니 자와디 상부직 차도요 그랬어.
So whatever action we engage in, if we do so with a pure motivation, a motivation of kindness and a wish to help, then we can expect to obtain positive results on the basis of that. So whether it is actions, we speak about actions of body, speech, and mind. So in terms of actions of speech, speaking in a kind and comfortable loving way towards others, and in terms of actions of our body, showing respect through our body language, or helping others in any kind of activity of this nature, as long as we have a pure and kind motivation and wish to help others, it's certain that what we perform as a result of that meditation, that motivation, will be something positive.
아니 직비게 현라야 뇌베 상바 다는 신기 직비게 소수 량암 다는 신기 저와 아니 직비게 발소르다 로바 아니 직비게 랑드이 직비 상바다 제와 로바 소수 된다 주야 소수 민이요야 소수 계좌이요야 소수 무이요야 소수 아니 직비게 소수 된다 근데 직 상단체니 아니 나랑도 된 비게 레구지 잡아이는 아니 직비 nga이 보내 시장 보면 있는데 루이 보내 아니 시장 구바체로 있는데 아니 직비게 맨날 최칭이 지금은 셰비는 굴롱 두자직 톤에 아니 자체 최고부 매도부 아니 직부와 아니 뭐랄게 아니 다가온 시제비네 디 가서 그래 저버디 상부차도요 말이스.
So likewise, just as we need a pure motivation in order to engage in something positive and beneficial, if we have a motivation in which we're driven primarily by a mind that wishes to harm others, or a motivation of greed, of wishing to obtain some kind of personal gain, or out of wishing to obtain a good reputation, fame, money, right? Anything that you do with a selfish motivation for your own welfare will only result in something negative in the end. So as a result of negative motivations, our actions of body, speech, and mind become negative as well. So when we speak, we don't speak with respect, we don't speak with kindness. When we act with our bodies, we don't act with respect either. So, and if we speak about explicitly religious activities, in Buddhism, people engage in actions such as making sort of bowing, prostrations, making offerings, and so forth. Those actions on the outside, they may seem virtuous, but if they're done with a negative motivation, they will not result in something virtuous. Therefore, we should always remember that no matter what kind of activity we engage in, first of all, it's very important to have the right kind of motivation. Motivation is extremely important, no matter what you're doing. So, if we carry the right motivation and engage in an action, as Rinpoche has explained, this is something that will result in something positive. But of course, sometimes we make mistakes, right? So even with the best of intentions, occasionally mistakes will be made. But what we can say about this is that if you have a good motivation, the mistake isn't as sort of pernicious as it could be. It's not as bad as it could be.
Bena ani ngaranzu gulung delia shenlia sundu samba mevche wa gulung de sundu samba mevche michigia ni ji juwa shi sam juwa da ji bi vidili ya bo chi meri ngaranzu juwa shi de ji tone da midi ba shi jang bo sui ge gulung ji tone shi ni pe zhong mo midi she midi se kaso midi so che li ne andi mi se ni ba ji yong me ba
So from the perspective of a Buddhist understanding of karma, karmic cause and effect, if one has the right kind of motivation, even if you engage in some kind of action that externally looks like something non-virtuous, it's considered not as a negative a form of karma. So for example, if you harm someone, if you harm them physically in some way, right? But you really do so out of a wish to help them, even if that person were to die, right? And this is from a Buddhist perspective, right? Even if that person were to die, this is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Once you have the right kind of motivation.
그게 꿀롱 디시안이야 뇌견도 샌드 그게 디디직 토네 아니 그게 뭐였어 아니 남주도 된수 그게 상고지다 개물지게 디치 제리네 디 자와데 저번 세회 자원지 뭐지 그거였어.
And in the opposite way, right? If you have a negative motivation, but you externally you show a kind of smiling, kind face, right? You act as if you're very kind, but you do so out of a negative intention. From a Buddhist perspective, this is actually considered an act of violence. It's something harmful.
다 그게 양 니주 말한주 가서 오래 그게 다 말한주 봐래 다 니마 루규톤 와다 꿀롱 양 그게 미먼부서 개별체 봐 꿀롱데 아니 그게 말한주 지조다 나는 시 미먼부 된다 나는 시 그게 수업은 개별다 되게 된다야 말한주 양 디번 미디를 레슨님도 한다 그게 액션 테스트 독자한테 준비네 디 아니 채널 되기어스.
So what we can take from this is that if we come from the motivation of wishing to help as many people as possible, if we wish ultimately to protect the lives of the many, it is possible that sometimes mistakes will happen, sometimes negative things that seem negative will take place. But ultimately, because we come from the right place, right, it is from a positive motivation. This is not necessarily a negative action.
배나 아주 루규지어레스. 니마 아니 파슈레 야갈이야. 와 당가 보면 너무 불공이야. 아니 가서 야주 친구 지나미야. 아니 송방갑자. 아니 송리야. 진짜 와. 송치 송치 이게 배 친구가블이야. 아니 디나네 되는 이게 미독자지 체. 송치 이제 송의 수 로그유다. 넌다 누르지 제도 정말 이게 당연한 아일랜드스 그와 근데 나제네 그와 근데 주 렌즈 주 용백급이야 아니 그래서 디나니 미투자체와 미투자치 코란 미나 동동이네 소도 다고 되게 민데 겨가 그 아니 주난 총번 앞에 찾아 세지 디 주는 상호랑 주포야 상도 스코어です.
So there's a very famous Buddhist story that's often told to illustrate the importance of motivation. And the story goes that in ancient India, at one point there were 500 merchants on a ship. And they traveled to this island, and on the island they found all these jewels and treasure, and they were carrying this treasure back to their land. But while they were on their journey, one of those merchants had this negative thought to could kill everyone and take all the jewels.
어디든지 갑들이야다 디나는 주디나리야 아니 만주 되는 이게 다 전주선 봤다 무엇이 미치 봐 남배 냠렘바 친구치 디나 옆체 아니 고랑이 미디기 자와 독자 정부의 현실 봐 고랑 합포 다시 전에 자들이 니주 연구유 합포를 갑이야 다 지금 미디 미나 동동세들이야 봐 대세점 개체비는 요에 매버데 다 주지 다디 대세 맞게 다 간다 그 대세 되니까 걸 가서 랍지 되는 인기 매버지 아니 그다 간다 내가 도자 때문에 뭐 땡겨지 디 준비급이야 아니 다 기시고디 제주비는 민감하게 소쇼고 봐 진짜 디 아니 내기 넘버 3기 냠렘 호랑기 아니 공 간다 미나 동동세인데 세트스 세네니 총방합때 소 아니 겹도 중요하です.
So while this person was sort of scheming to kill all of the other 500 merchants and to take all of the treasure for himself, there was another person on that ship. And in the story, right, it's a Buddhist story, we say that this person was a bodhisattva, so a kind of heroic being, right, a being with a very vast motivation to help other sentient beings. And this person had these clairvoyant powers, right? And out of his clairvoyant powers, he could see that this guy was planning to kill everyone, and that he'd already decided to do so, and that even if he tried to speak with him, there was no way that this guy was going to stop. He was determined to kill everyone and take all the treasure. And so, seeing that this was the case, what the Bodhisattva decided to do, actually, in order to save the 500 people, was to kill this one person.
세상에 인도 다 기시고 내가 제주에 있는 아니 그 민감게 세 땡기고 와. 이게 전에 난 제주 선bat이 코랑도 남배냠래 뭐랑기 아니 기시 민감게 소쇼주 있는 코랑 민감게 소쇼고 하고 그게 코랑 밑에 제주에 있는 다티베트 녀와 친구 차고 와. 딜레 미직디 세르티 녀와 총을 차고 와. 진짜 데이리 잔데 데이기 때문에 아니 그게 어렸어. 제가 간단한 민감 기디 소자베 지금 고마트 세르와.
So the Bodhisattva could see that if he allowed this person to go ahead with his plans to kill everyone, these 500 people would ultimately die. And as a Bodhisattva, a being who wishes to help others, to knowingly allow someone to commit harm to as many people as that, 500 others, is not allowed, right, according to this person's Buddhist practice. So, in fact, the practice would demand that he kills the one person in order to protect 500. And from a Buddhist perspective, the action that he did is out of a good motivation and ultimately a virtuous action.
어쨌든 이제 딱 향수 아니 이게 딱 통계 정보를 봐 아니 이제 지나니야 아니 지금 가서 그랬다 송교 최고야를 따는 신지 그게 가서 그랬다 내가 니만다 니제니를 봐 니메고 뭐 세리야 이게 송교다 안 따는 신지 이게 가서 챌린지 somewhere 되게 그때 오늘 생기 강에다 데리 주먹고 데리 요구 유기를 제가 레디 내조디 향한 주꾸는 상부치 돈이 요구 유디 아니 지기에 가서 그래 다디 셴뱅 저와 같이 붙을 때인데 자토요 상도스.
So each and every one of you who work here in the police department, you're working in an extremely large city. You're working to protect many, many people, and you work extremely hard, not only during the day, but also at night. And of course, there must be many challenges that come together with the kind of work that you do. Not only the challenges that you face out on the streets, but also internal challenges that you must have, some kind of mental difficulties that you must face as you go about doing the work that you do. So what I want to really say to you is that, remember your intention, remember why you're doing this, remember your motivation. This is extremely important as you go about your day.
아니 지금 향수 꿀롱티 댄데 같이 하니까 가서 같이 하니까 쉬는도 레다간다 댄데 꿀롱 상보직간 꿀롱 하고도 지금 시티디 세이프야 다른 신이 지금 데지기 다 꿀롱 토네 아니 이게 다또 되는다 간다 미시 러시베 디두디 향수 아니 쿠트키 아니 내가 지금 되잖아요 지금 댄데 삼리양 보피게 민담한데 여러스 심지 지금 저바 장부주고 안에 잡고 담은데 여래 제가 디톤이 아주 넘주 담은데 또 와요 뭐레스 레디네 저디 그런 양은 지금 톤에 아주 넘주 된투 넘주 된고 있잖아요 디 배트 가서 왔다 디 넘주 장 차리요 말레스.
So I know that each and every one of you has 100% the correct motivation, right? Doing what you're doing. You're obviously extremely, very much motivated by a sense of kindness and love for your community. So I know that your motivation is right. And you're here to try to keep the city safe and to take responsibility for this community. Right? And it's not an easy job because you're taking on the responsibility of many, many people's happiness and suffering, right? This is in your hands. And so it's what you can remember is that, dealing with this large community, you will encounter many, many different types of people. Some people are easy to kind of deal with, some people are less easy to deal with, right? Some people will be very aggressive, some people will not be as aggressive. And so in dealing with many different types of people, you will have to engage in different types of methods. Sometimes you will have to be a little bit more stern. Sometimes you can be a little bit more, you can take a sort of more relaxed stance, right? You have to act accordingly with different types of people. And so in doing so, I don't think that you're making any kind of mistake at all if you have to sometimes be a little bit more stern. So then, because motivation is such an important aspect of your job. Oh, So something that we should bear in mind as we go about our daily lives is to, of course, have the right motivation. Now, what would constitute a wrong motivation? From a Buddhist perspective, sometimes we talk about being motivated by worldly concerns of merely wanting to obtain food, clothing, and fame, right? So in terms of food, this is talking about getting nice food, nice things to drink, right? That kind of physical comfort. In terms of clothes, this includes things like obviously nice clothing, but also having nice shelter, wealth, cars, those sorts of materially driven concerns. And then in terms of fame, right, being primarily driven by one's wish for a good reputation or wishing to obtain awards and things like that. These are considered not very good motivations. So then today, in relation to this topic of motivation, one of the best motivations that one can have is to be compassionate in everything that one does. And today I'd like to share with you a text written by a great Tibetan master on the topic of compassion and how to generate a compassionate mind. So generally speaking, when we speak about the minds of love, compassion, and then a mind that they speak about in Buddhism known as bodhicitta, so this is an altruistic wish to benefit all sentient beings. All of these minds are extremely precious and important. So if we think about the nature of these kinds of minds, we can see that really love and compassion, these things are fundamental to our survival. They're fundamental to our very livelihood, to our very well-being in every way.
말한주 그게 아멘냐는 인점 자원에 송대 봐 말한주 초야의 가르토는 초여서는 잡아도 제외 아니 love and compassion 기 초제 내데 그랬어 말한주 도마 마이 인점 저외가 로방갈 인점 저외가 내체 마이 아니 지구라나 스트바타 지구 고베나 보유 산제 칼라사탄 가서 돌로간다 아니 지켜서 수고이 많이 예다 아니 지구에 지구와 주변 상말로디 아니 지구에 조디 아니 비에 보디 차로야 오야 보디 아버지게 보디 아니 지구에 가서 왔다 지 보디 다랑 사모화제 아니 아메 최대체야 어디 되기는 아니 못 왔어 근데 지금 상담이 토마 마 아메 코본 깨버리죠 아니 제외 로 잡아도 제외만 처리 처리 그랬어.
So how is it that love and compassion form the very foundation of our survival and well-being? Well, if we think about from the very moment we were conceived, we were held by love, right? So once our mothers found out that we were in their stomachs, think about how much your mother cared for you, right? Even at that moment, the way she adjusted how she ate, the way she adjusted how she went about her life, how she slept, even everything that she did for you in order to make sure that you would be okay, right? That kind of love that a mother acts from the moment a child is conceived. Without that kind of love, we certainly would not have survived. And so from the very beginning of our existence, we were held with love.
지금 마이 한다지 보고 나와내 마음 뭐라 나야 나나 까왔다 보고 된도 마음 뭐라 게 되는 소리 지는 몇 단지 디제지기다 내가 지금 돈이 안 와서 아니 초 그랬어.
So mothers care only for their children, right? Everything that they do, they're thinking only for the well-being of their child. So when the child gets sick, the mother feels even greater pain than the child. Mothers are even willing to give up their lives for their children. So this is the circumstances under which we were raised, under we had that mother's love, each and every one of us. And so we survived and we were happy and healthy and we're here because of love.
다른 신기 그게 아주 내가 많이 깨찬이 내가 이제 봐 아니 집에 깨만 타고 저 봐. 디네 제가다 지구에 가서 그래. 아주 아마다 아메 다종 기만 가서 다종을 취대지다. 기시 아메 다종 까망치니지 하이 가서 그래. 반은 딱디 다종 제마도 중요해. 아주 소셔에 배 소체기 소기와 아니 이게 내 소체에 내 좀 너무 잘돼요.
And after we were actually born from our mother's wombs, even then we needed our mother's love. So at that time, if for any reason our mothers had neglected us for any amount of time, there were many things that could have happened to us. Certainly, we could have died if our mothers had just left us. So we see that even then, right, we need our mother's love from the very beginning.
아마도 저 탑산나 칼라스 야 보고 무슨 좀 봐지 따따지 야 남산수 용데 탑산나요 딘데스지와 그 졸라 마저 첸데 쉽지 있다 거기 수주 첸 안주와 기시 아마 피지 까마카시지 매비 안주 소시 봐 아마 그 수주 진이지 매비 안주 소셔야 내가 사자한테 버스 주의 그래서 안주 마사시브리 가깝네 시시브리 로던 시시브리 니만 포제 사찬 시시브리 알아? 아니 지금 제가 못다는 시시브리 차는 시시브리 돌아내지 알아? 시야기 chance 되지 hundreds of chance your was.
And then I'm sure all of us have memories of how our mothers would take care of us. So if, say, your mom was in the other room cooking a meal and you're in the next room and as soon as you cry, your mother puts everything down and she comes to check on you to make sure that you're okay. And she'll do this again and again. So she'll go back to her cooking and then you cry again and then she comes again, right? She'll do this hundreds of times just to make sure that you're okay. So if a mother didn't do that, right, and a mother left her child for something like 1 or 2 hours, think about a small baby, a small infant. Think about what could happen to that child, right? The baby could fall, could hit its head, could could die from hunger, could die from heat or cold, exposure. All kinds of things could happen without that mother's love. There are many, many hundreds of chances in which we could have died had our mothers not showed us that kind of love.
말아서 집에 가서 그러시. 다 생심쟁이 지내도 하다 랑 많이 거든 다 단다 손붙이는 와. 소스비어 하지. 나도 오늘 말아서 가리기만 야 폴리스네 암지네 로야이네 다 지금 간대지네 지금에 창문으로 와서 손붙이 내려야 되다 밤에 거든 되는 와. 야 차원 준비가 봐. 다나시 이게 가서 하이스쿨 좀 kindergarten에 제야 듣다 담으니까 아니 가래 하이스쿨 되게 찾아 밤에 거기 다나시 기계 다나시 소수 하고 디 네버기 쿠유 그러봐 이제 시지 창원춘 유니버시티 챔피언에 나 3월로 한달 내가 컨디션이 생각은 된 소리 맞다 지기 소투도 많이 왔어 시제에 된 토니네 또 토니네 다나시 그게 소수와 조금만 아주 점리된 네트워크 도왔어. 소수 조금. 그 상에 거리는 안 소득시 도왔어.
So we start off by thinking about how our mothers have shown us incredible love and kindness throughout our lives. And we think about how without our mothers we certainly wouldn't be here today. No matter what you are, if you're a policeman or woman, if you're a lawyer or a doctor, none of that could have taken place without initially that love from your mother in the beginning. And then we have to then extend that thinking to all other sentient beings as well. So just as our mothers have shown us incredible kindness, and we wouldn't be here without our mothers, this is true of all other sentient beings as well. So everything that we have, everything that we make use of, ultimately comes from dependence on the kindness of others. So, as children, we were sent to school. We went to kindergarten, then we went to high school, junior school, and then high school. Eventually, some of us went to college, and everything that we gained was as a result of something else, right? It's not out of your own power. Your knowledge, your education, the things that you made use of, right? The resources that were available to you, that came from the kindness of others, your teachers, your friends, the environment that you were in, your community, right? So everything that we have, right, the very clothing on our backs, the food that we're eating, everything comes from others. And so we have to think about the kindness of other sentient beings. So just the very fact that right now we're here and we're healthy, we're able to go about our work, the things that we need to do, all of this comes from the kindness of other sentient beings. So even though it is the case that what we have comes from others, our general way of thinking is we have the sense that I achieved this, right? I did this out of, by dint of my own sheer hard work and will. And we think, well, as long as I have money, then I can achieve anything. Right? This is often how people think. But this is absolutely an incorrect way of thinking. We have to remember that really what we have comes from others.
Takiru, Labi Marva, Saya, Tonya, Quenya, someone of the Shanks and Jenkin Jones. Manju, Saya, Palejine, the Trot Chongwa, Trot the Nation, but Gorwa, Shimbadi Johnson Songan the Gorwa, Songan the Annie, the Didition, what? And Trot the Chimbadi, Chekata, some of the dead one. Day, Hana Shin Chipige, Najay, sugar cane chonwa, sugar cane tabarwa, Tamni sugar cane, the sugar song, Sotayorwa, Sotatine, company Zomburwa, the company Zong Leje, all the understand, the net Songa, the Lichin, Shensen Jen cutting that one. And Tulo and the Grande, Tulo de the material song, the Soyamne, the Tsimbuyan. Did a wish which how to there because I draws measurable Chazandico Tango Chirua, Zoyagachi, Zangachi, and so you am doing. And she got the bachi, song the packet ticket gap, the song and the tongue answer, just higher. Just such a tone to your conscious Chazandi, change and gentle choices.
So, no matter what we make use of in our lives, everything comes from others. The clothing that we wear, the food that we eat. Even if we think about just one slice of bread that we eat in the morning, right? That came from many, many causes and conditions that ultimately resulted in this slice of bread that you eat. So there was someone who had to go out and plant the wheat, and then gather the wheat, right? Process it, then turn it into bread, then deliver it to a shop, where you can then go in and buy that piece of bread and eat it, right? And this is the case even with 1 grain of rice or one grain of sugar, right? Everything had to be cultivated through the work of many, many individuals in order that now we can go into a shop and just easily access that. Now, if we had to do all this work ourselves, right? If we had to sew our own clothing and make our own bread and plant everything ourselves, it's just not possible. Right? And the fact that it's not possible shows us in a very immediate way that we are so dependent on others. Right? Everything that we make use of, everything that we enjoy, comes from the kindness of other sentient beings.
With the sand damn to Lumba Chamashi is a Mikun Mesa Yorwa, Sayatman, teaching roboting and Merche, Chedan Kido Chivia, and Sugo check $1 Kashish Gam Kashish Yune, Yumaching in a hand to Shirulis. Right, the moving on the Panto, Miji Yuna, Mimo Kiji Yune, Chida, and Dodge to us. Says that she has and catch me in the she can go.
So, if sometimes we think that as long as I have money, I can accomplish anything. But if we do a short, small thought experiment, right? So say you have several cases full of, say several $1 million, right? Several suitcases full of money. But you take these several suitcases of money and they dump you on this remote island where there's no one around. How long do you think you'll survive with all of that money? I don't think you'll survive for a very long time at all. So really, we need to have other people in our lives. We need community. We need the help of others in order to thrive and do well. And so this is the kindness of other sentient beings. So sometimes we also see that people have this kind of strange attachment to jewels and diamonds and gold and all of these things. But no matter how much you love your diamond won't love you back. But if there were a dog with you, that dog will love you, right? So we should stop cherishing things like diamonds and gold and jewels, and what we should cherish is love, right? What we should really hold in esteem is love and compassion and caring for each other. And of course we know that love is something that cannot be purchased. It's absolutely priceless. You can go into a shop, you can buy a diamond, you can buy gold, but the fact that you can't go into a shop and buy love and compassion, that shows its worth, it shows how important it is.
Rape, murder, robbery, midnight drivers. 소수 대함 소수 개변 소수 아니지 그게 그노로 되게 유한한다 아니지 그거네 셴 소스다 이제 그게 가서라 베트남에 당치는 와 아니지 다하는 신기 다 제임스에 성다 되자 되와 되게 다 되자 되조조 소수 기부 유한한다 또와 어쨌든 이제 셴기 거지 셴기 자와 셴기 아니지 그게 아주 장바 이제야 그다음에 책 되게 되다 저는 이제 뭐였어 나는 신경 되게서 요 마, 봐 미지 평균 나는 신경 그게 지조 평균 마 세리다 이게 참으로 잠재지 나는 이게 처리도 했어.
So in the world in which we live, if this esteem for love and compassion were held in the minds of each and every being living in this world, we would certainly see a much, much better world, right? And certainly there would be no crime, for example, right? So killing, robbery, rape, all of these things really come out of a lack of love for others, right? So people commit these crimes mainly out of a sense of selfishness, right? They want to have some kind of happiness for themselves, and out of doing that, they disregard the happiness of others. They don't have love for others, and this is how these things occur, right? So when we look at something, for example, like rape, right, that comes from a kind of attachment, and it really comes from wishing for the person wishing themselves to have happiness without any regard for the other person. Right, so it's very important that these things take place because we don't treasure love and compassion in our society, right? And so it's really important to cultivate more love and more compassion, a greater respect and esteem for these qualities of the mind, to think about love and compassion, to think about the kindness of other sentient beings. Without this is how all our problems occur when we look at things like war, conflict, racism. Right? Where do these things come from? They come from a lack of love, not treasuring love, not holding love and compassion as the most important thing in our lives.
저물링이 시대에 잠들 때는 연구가 주로 빈주 튼지인의 잠들 때는 연구가 미리 바라 튼지인의 잠들 때는 연구가 계급 빈주 튼지인의 잠들 때는 연구가 레데 이내 잠바드 저원이 지세 계지 시행해 버려요 말이지 저물링 우리들 토지 휴치고 할 때에 상으로 봐주 직 가서 오래 두젠 선제 좋아야로다 다는 시기지 매도 좋아야다 와 트리티도 상으로 와 미슈분도 좋아한다. 어다 되제시지. 그러봐. 아니 돌아 빌린지 니지지 파제 수제 디데게지만 잡아도 제가 얘기하는데 땅도 수천이 시행이요 말했어. 대상 뒤다 내주 자차고지다. 야차고 시작이었어. 야차고서는 시베
So we live in this world in which there are many difficult things taking place, many conflicts, many challenges, many negative events taking place all around us. And we've just spoken about how important love is, right? We've spoken about how love really forms the foundation of our well-being, it forms the foundation of our happiness. But no one talks about love, right? None of our leaders in the world are talking about love as something that's fundamental, as a means to accomplishing the well-being of the world. So, if we think about any kind of racial harmony, cultural harmony, right, a harmony within a community or within a society, the international relations, if all of these things were performed or dealt with out of a sense of first cultivating love, compassion, empathy for the other, these things would be accomplished far more easily. But instead we see, the development of nuclear weaponry, selling weapons to each other, the exchanging of billions and billions of dollars. And this doesn't seem to accomplish very much. No one is talking about love and compassion. And things have become indeed very severe and more challenging in this world.
They mean well, what? Somebody give opportunity, they mean well, what? What Quran to come to Chigi, get it what? Quran to something in a Quran to be one at the dish is the Caribbean more to what is.
So this is not to criticize our leaders, right? They mean well, they're trying to do their best, right? But they haven't been able to identify what the real cause of happiness, harmony, and well-being is. They haven't been able to see that what we need is love and compassion and empathy.
Global warming that can issue stay what? So when you chulo sayong ani that meshu baldo American Australia na baldo ani bhagwa tornadoes today udwa tige samalo tita ngazu chamzi na mani wa chamzi singeti ngazu ani tige yoyagi shizati karitone ngolsen kuyu sonje 병 같이 살았어. 구유 sonje karitone ngolsen ngazu sota ani all sayto all meta all lo detect that needs to move so that detect on the good one that the social mutual social big get-out social video sharing the said that dealing around touch the yawa ton the day is under ton and you show the man natural disaster some of this.
Now, to address a very pressing issue that we face today, there's the problem, of course, of global warming. So with the situation, we see that the environment, the very earth that we need to survive, is in a state of decline. There are more and more natural disasters. We see floods, hurricanes, fires. These things are happening before our very eyes. And we know that, to an extent, these things were caused by greed. Right, these factories and mining companies that, without any regard for protecting the environment and protecting this world that we need to survive, engaged in various ventures in order to obtain their own goals, right, profit or fame or whatever it was. And so it's very important that we protect this environment. Now, the basis for protecting this environment is, again, love and compassion. Right? We have to think about the well-being of others, the fact that others also need this environment, not only ourselves, right? And out of love and compassion, then to engage in more thought of protecting the environment.
That man to Finzanji Nane, Ruat, and Sazani, Ruat Chabat, Zawa Ninja, then Soho Yori, Pama the Budu in Chamzit, then Soho Yori, Chizo in Chamzit, then Soho Yori, Gigab in Chamzit, then Soho Yori. What? So that the money chances the amount to not tell you which Shanghai wins in great vacation relations.
So no matter where one finds oneself, right, love and compassion is the most important thing. If we look, for example, within a family, right, between couples, between parents and children, right, of course, there has to be love there. And then we can extend this further to where we work, to our larger communities, and then to the society in general, and then further to our own country, and then internationally. Right? We have to recognize the key importance of love in everything that we do.
다니 신제 탐제 이시 누구 내가 전적으로 상반이 다도 제가 좀 쉬었어. 다디 도와 다디 전에 마신제 탐제 세디 아주 신제 탐제 세디 아주 쉽지 거리 좀 쉬었어. 아주 지된 용다리야 아니 이시 누구를 무지세 자주 쓰는 거 왔어. 이 가르에서는 wishful feeling juice. 될 때는 전다 상황 좀 두고 그랬어. 마신제 탐제 세디 될 그냥 하고 그랬어.
So we will begin the actual talk on the text on how to cultivate compassion. And this text is known as the 8 Verses of Mind Training by the master Geshe Langri Tangpa. So we'll make this available to everyone. So the first verse goes as follows. It says, "By thinking of all sentient beings as more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, for accomplishing the highest aim, I will always hold them dear." So here it speaks about all sentient beings, and we've already spoken about how all sentient beings are extremely kind and important to our well-being. And it states that they are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. So in Buddhism, when they speak about a wish-fulfilling jewel, this sort of speaks about this kind of a mythical jewel that is able to accomplish all of your wishes. And it's stated in this text that sentient beings are even more precious than this kind of jewel.
아이스는 마스이제 이식이 놓으세요. 거기지 이게 말한 줄이야. 네. 가서 왔다. 소았다비네 말한 줄더니 비게 즉 수수 되베윤데 누가 될 때는 되베윤데 다 수자 치료를 제로서 된제 기타 지금 거기 가서 진행하지만도 지금 될을 하고지 어떻게 기억하겠어. 마신제 탐제때 아니 될에 그냥 하고 아니 소수피게 메시지기네 디기 메시지 디자인도 마세네 마세 아니 겨워서 치마 핀제 들어와 치마 캘린더 온서 겨워서 치마 핀제도 디기 요한테 심쟁 그랬는데 요구요 제 디원도 신내 소소문에 대화기고 요한테 신 심쟁을 되는 거요 그랬어 나디 슈변한 신 소소 토마 차론 체베도 마디에 차베가 로존 체베가 야고 차베가 와 아니 지금 다른 신 소소 사야 그냥 소소 비리지 여대하게 단다 자기 튕기에 강바 창로도 신신전 되는 거였어. 그래서 이식 너무 세다. 다아들으셨어.
So why is it that other sentient beings are even more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel that could give us all of our desires? Well, the reason for this is because this kind of jewel would only be able to fulfill some kind of material well-being, right? So we'd only be able to get sort of material benefits as a result of this jewel. But the kind of happiness that we obtain on the basis of relying on other sentient beings is something far greater and far more profound, right? So out of love, out of their love towards us, we experience happiness in this life. And out of our own correct actions in relation to them, we're able to accomplish benefits for our future lifetimes, if this is something that you agree with. So in Buddhism, we accept that there are future lives, and we believe that acting in a virtuous way towards others is a way to obtain happiness in our future lifetimes. And so the happiness that we really experience just focusing on this life, the happiness, the genuine happiness that we have, that we experience, really comes from love. As Rinpoche has already explained, you know, from the very moment we were conceived and then we're born, when we went to school, when we're working, even when we get old, right? We need to rely on the empathy and kindness of other beings to have a really genuinely happy life.
세상에 딱 나눠줄 윤기 레데 딱 신신제 지우시 계시면 차스만 레데 나눠줄 삼노 땅다 나눠줄 저와 기당 나눠줄 집게 gyungi ji kaso de juju de ji to de yosna shen yo to ran che ba so ke che so gibu so gyakwa so bi sai ta be bo shen si je da na ne cha ne shi ne de be tren na me ji yu che de ji juju de ji ki no des 지금 디 저번 말은 디제지 게임데 다 말아서 단답도 내주 답교고 아주 냠마고 아주 강해체 하고 디 게임에 이거스 선보 만지에 디 이거 수 류는 나자요 될 때는 이거 참으로 될 때는 이것도 디 이제 다 다른 거에 저것이 제법겠지 아주 저것 아니 신 여와도 삼바티 파 여와토니 아니 신 이거 저거리 친구들 때 아주 여와토 그봐 녀터 손에 강해체 참으로도 소수 저거 말할 때는 딜 제번지 다들 재미도스 다 시행 제번지 비슷한데 때도 주 난 진진이 상바디 신대는 파편 시행 제번지 나 여와도 상식이 거 너무 쇼송 거였어.
So through these reflections we can see that other sentient beings are very, very important to our own well-being, and nevertheless, however, we don't act in that way. So the way that we generally go about our lives is that we neglect the happiness of others, and we think of our own happiness and our own well-being as being the most important thing. So we go through our days really just caring about, well, am I happy enough? Am I getting enough food? Am I prosperous enough? And we don't think about others. And from a Buddhist perspective, because of this, we then experience suffering, right? So all of our physical suffering, our mental suffering, any feelings of anxiety or discomfort ultimately come from not caring about others and only caring about our own well-being. And so what we need to be able to do is recognize that a selfish attitude is the cause of all of our suffering. And the cause of happiness comes from cherishing the well-being of others. And in Buddhist practice, what one aims to do is to exchange one's sense of cherishing self for a sense of cherishing others. So you take the sense of caring for yourself, the love that you have, or the cherishing that you have for your own well-being, and you extend it to other sentient beings. You apply that same kind of love towards others as opposed to just.
심지어 탐지세 원에 그게 겨울스러 그것만 남서 있네. 신디가 오늘 제비는 나한테 원에 단 쉬우지 그리 좀 버리셨어. 제가 디데 일단 신 말씀제 탐지세 만 들어서 그리 좀 버리기. 다 심지어 간제지 되는 거 아주 좀 지체일까 봐. 봐. 다지 미리 추루 아니지 그게 봐. 아니 샤카고 나보세 민두 봐. 포도 모세 민두 봐. 아니 지금 다나 신지 가서래 같이 인생 이슈인생 개발도 아니 미리 가리니 개발 간제진님도 아주 봐줘 친구다 이제 까불이야 아니 다시 전주문에 들어서 그런 친구들 봐 그런 친구 쉬우인데 단 대다래 녀가 손에 맞지 맞다 친구 소소를 했어 다시 심지어 좀 아주 뭐리야 봐 바이오리티 봐 바이오리티 봐 바이오리티 지체 봐 아니 소소 딜레마 매매치 삼단으로 아니 소수 하선 넘버 탑을 통해서 대한 지금 뭐가 별로 빼내다 지 심지어 현재 지금 요 돈도 전혀 남유를 시대 샘딩의 수수 된다를 되는데 삼번 넘버 탑을 와 트랜스퍼런트 스테이지로 봐 이제 지금 통해 아니 현심지 마음부터 진진로 이게 쇼스 말한지 단답도 요 소수 당보 소수 바이오리티 와 다니 꾸인데 아니 배 조치가 뜨거워 봐. 다디 매체비체. 다니 꾸는 마 멤버스 상다지.
So then the second verse states as follows. Whenever I'm in the company of others, I will regard myself as the lowest among all, and from the depths of my heart, cherish others as supreme. So again, this is speaking about the kindness of other sentient beings, and remembering that kindness, we should interact with that understanding, no matter who we're with. So no matter what company we keep, no matter who is around us, we should always remember the kindness that that other sentient being has given us. So this is something that should be done irrespective of the other person's religion, right? The other person's gender, race, no matter where they come from. We should always hold them with that kind of esteem. And in this way, by thinking about the kindness of others, we should make their happiness our priority. So the general way that we go about living our lives is that we make our own happiness, our own well-being our priority. Gradually, we should aim to shift this so that we make others' well-being our priority and act always with a truly altruistic motivation to benefit them. And this shouldn't be something that is done deceptively. You know, we pay lip service saying, "Oh, I'm here to help others," when really we're not, right? This should be something that is absolutely genuine, absolutely transparent, absolutely from the heart. We should wish to really hold others in the highest esteem and wish to benefit them instead of ourselves.
Hasan number this one. Jolam kundu rangyul loji mo kemat dashemoro cheba zendam dene dogoshus. Ta ngaranzu chipige rwa marab cheya 아니 지금 로아 시안 한바시야 되 차도 체야 아니 지금 마가와 체야 로아 라네 토알 디로아 라네 교이 통중 상체 소소리 냠바이 아니 지금 가서래 가서 진도르기 상바 소소리 토이 로아 소소리 규체와 소소리 신체는 안 차도 심지고 소소도 냠바이 안 젠슨 지고 소소리 마와 있는 통주 지고 the Jolam Chippy Marua, Hajang, Mone Chenyamba, or the day Picasule, Jolam gave a couple of ya, Annie, Nimon Gematas, did that the day Jovanyamba, what Nimonimus in the Jovanyamba said, the day Jolam, the Joy a couple of ya, Maranzu, and Jovanny waiting back down, the day Jolam did Anzu, Sosu Marua Cheva Masse, Shania and Ganete, Shania might use her. What then a hundred of Satsumina? Hundred San one, so might give that again. What so good to them New York, set Hondu to Yori. Tim had said, the queen net up to be mighty with what? Teaches over my give you the day and a child one. Says that Dashiniga Maroon singing that you must chatting yours. Says that you want the Dashi Maroon Chivy, and it gets a but the Chivy Tony, and it deep and bad. Nimon, the Nimos, the winds in the tongue.
Now the third verse states, in my every action, I will watch my mind, and the moment destructive emotions arise, I will confront them strongly and avert them, since they will hurt both me and others. So, as we go about our lives, trying to be as virtuous as possible and trying to cultivate the right kind of motivation. Of course, occasionally, negative mental states will arise and we'll act in ways that are not always beneficial towards others. So sometimes we'll engage in acts of, say, jealousy or competitiveness, hatred and dislike for others, sometimes, kind of saying bad things about other people. And so then, in relation to those who occupy a lower position than us, we run the risk of looking down on them. And for those that are in an equal standing, we can get very competitive. And then those who have sort of a better circumstance than ourselves, then we can get very jealous, right? So these are these natural states of mind that arise in relation to other sentient beings. So when this does take place within our minds, it's very important to be able to recognize this negative behavior. And as soon as you recognize this behavior, aim to try to diminish it. So how do we go about getting to a place where we can diminish these negative states of mind? It's very important to think about the disadvantages that they have. And the text states that they will hurt both me and others. Right? So this is the main thing that we should think about. We should think that when we engage in negative activities, this is something that is not harmful only to myself, but also harmful to others. So if we take anger, for example, right? When we get very angry, it's very clear that this is immediately harmful to ourselves. Our minds become very, they're out of control, they're no longer peaceful, and this also affects our health. We can actually, if we're angry all the time, it affects our immune systems, and we could even have a shorter life as a result. So those are the ways in which anger harms yourself. And then also it harms the people around you. So when you have one angry person in an environment, think about how much unhappiness that creates for everyone else who's around that person. So we should think about how these afflictive states of mind, negative states of mind, are really something that's extremely harmful both to self and others. And out of that understanding, recognize when they arise within our minds, and then try to diminish them as much as possible. Then the fourth verse states, whenever I see ill-natured beings, or those overwhelmed by heavy misdeeds or suffering, I will cherish them as something rare, as though I'd found a priceless treasure. So, in cultivating a greater sense of love and compassion for others, we should understand that this is something that all of us can accomplish. But we do occasionally come across difficult people, right? So we come across people that are quite badly behaved or ill-tempered, that don't listen to you, that don't interact well with you. And so these people certainly exist. And generally, our attitude towards them is we think, well, you know, that person's, look at that really negative behavior that they're engaging in. They'll get what's coming to them, right? They're not gonna do well in their lives. We have that kind of attitude. From a Buddhist perspective, we speak about karma. We say, oh, they're not gonna have a good future rebirth, and we say things like that, right? But this is the wrong attitude to be taking. Instead, we should really try to see that person as like a precious jewel, like a treasure. Now, why in the world would we do that, right? Why would we see someone difficult as a precious treasure? We do this because, well, on the one hand, we should think about the fact that this person is probably doing as best as they can, right? Sometimes they really don't know how to do better. And so it's important then to have compassion for them in that way, right? To see that they're acting in this incredibly unskillful manner, and that action is only going to cause them harm. It's only going to result in something that will bring them suffering, and then that's actually very sad. So it's important to cultivate that compassion towards them. Now, we should also think that this difficult person is an opportunity for us to do better. Right? So when we see someone that's difficult, that gives us an opportunity to become a better person, to practice patience, for example. Right? So patience, from a Buddhist understanding, is not getting angry. right? So you can't practice patience in relation to people who are always easy to get along with, right? How are you going to increase your capacity for patience in that way? Generally, you practice patience in relation to people who you would consider like your enemy, someone who harms you, someone who causes a lot of unhappiness in your mind, right? That's the way to make yourself a more patient person. And so then when we see these kinds of beings, right, we should see them as an opportunity to better ourselves, and therefore see them as a precious jewel.
다른 신이 차도 그래. 다른 신이 차도 이 시골라서 이제 경과라는 데는 제가 신을 비우셔서 다 지금 가서 소소리야 아니지 만주 შემ벌을 야보치 소소 자와치 참부치 되지 다 지고 봐. 레디 만주로 막아와치 견주치 차도치 그러봐 아니지 그게 메라방에 되게 내주다 뭐 요거레스 되게 또 만주 배가는 두자는 가 마가와치도 말을 견주치도 제 삼바베도 콘로사 마이기부차 디케베드네 비게 수고를 나자죠. 그러봐 되게 좀 요거를 왔어. 제가 되게 좀 준비해가리야 말한주 아니 되게 좀 준비해가리야 sorry 만주다 가수래 그게 되게 다 삼고 와레스 제가 되게 삼고 다 뒤자니 상당히 요마레스 소소로 미기 마가와체 견주체야 차도체야 되게 참을 어디 땐된 소소 만들고지 제거레스 난 소소 장마 장에 미가 견주치도서 타지도 블레임 디셔벌 요도 왔어 이제 만 소소는 주 중요레스 가시 야탄벤 중요면 가시되 가시로 가로지 소소 만들게 중요레스 아니 생각만 걔는 오늘 제가 땅리가 새로운 것만 나서 아주 시안에 차도지 견주치 되게 되고 상담되고 세디가 용 체리 소소 지담 드리어 소소 realize 지고 말이스 이제 시에나 견주되나 지담 좀 먹고 좀 거스 근데 디디야 나는 동네에서 맞을 체 경과도 소소네 걔가 대신 바쁘셔 근데 되게 어려 디쳐도 송거스
Now the next verse states, whenever someone out of envy does me wrong by attacking or belittling me, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others. So as we go about trying to be kinder towards others, trying to benefit others, sometimes it will happen that even those that we show the greatest love towards will turn around and treat us very badly. So they may say negative things about us, they may say behind our backs, they may say negative things to our face, right? They may be competitive towards us or jealous and so forth, and create a lot of problems in our lives despite our best intentions. So when we encounter that kind of situation, it's of course very easy to get angry and to lose hope in your practice of compassion, and to get very unhappy about the situation. But it's important not to fall into that trap, right? To fall into that trap, to get angry and to start blaming the other person. So generally, when we experience difficulties as a result of someone else, we think that the blame falls 100% on that person. And we don't really look at what we ourselves have done. So from a Buddhist perspective, if you're someone who accepts the idea of a past life, we say that sometimes those things are a result of something you did in your previous lifetime that's giving rise to difficulties in the current lifetime. But we don't even have to go that far. Sometimes we just need to look in this very lifetime and to see, what is it that I've done wrong that's giving rise to that negative result. If we look very carefully, there's certainly something that you can find where you haven't done exactly the right thing, right? And it's important then not always to blame others, but sometimes to look deeply, to engage in some kind of introspection and to look at what we've done wrong. Because if we look carefully, there will be something that we've done wrong.
경과라는 게 하시는 거죠. 한 딸이 편다 여쳐 다시 신음이 되지는 신이 담았다 오셨어. 다 말한 주 심진 두자이 루아 심진 저번에 뭐 심진 말아 심진 지 가서 제년보다 요거들 다 되다 용병다. 다 참내 나랑 주 파 참부지 나랑 주 소용치 나랑 주 칼라테 나랑 주 로종체 루아 배나 파마르지네 부 리아 지금 쉬우지도 치고 근데 바제 장 오늘 전에 준비 미든주에 소소리아 땡큐 슈 소소리아 바 가서 온다 진행을 무슨 오늘이네 제일 좋다 로봇체 수 페더치 자고 걸어 디파션 다도 주 마가와치 견주체 데데는 주 연구도 왔어 뭐이니 지나 데데 좀be 까부터 아 시랄 로고 연구를 봤어 아까 네 콜다 미투지다 미투자 진짜 인베원도다 네 디거지 콜에 참여지 제외 그냥 배 디거지 제일 때 그거가 도시 쉬에 차고 다도 그거가 디거지 배 저걸로도 산 아주 시랄 로고 연구를 봤어 데데 좀be 까부에 대 가서 그래 대 영화です대 배신에 담았다쇼스 대 말한 소스가 제비 유리스 대 말한 소 혼주 만나게 대 말한 주는 뮤직 총이 내가 얘기기스 말한 주파 참고 제거해야 돼 그 말한 주야 교수로 보면 아주 그 말한 주 제외 그냥 말한 주 불륜도 무슨 파 제거해야 차이 기스 대 강사 대 말한 주 세베 제비 대 리시스 세베 대 원에다 세베 제비 대 컨트롤하는 데 연구를 봐 대 신에 담았다쇼스
Now the next verse states, even when someone I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher. So again, this is speaking about those that repay the kindness that we do them with harm. And it's certainly the case that we will experience these kinds of difficult situations and difficult people. You know, it may be the case that you've offered absolutely everything you can to a specific individual. You've given them all the protection that they need. You've given them food, you've given them education, you've given them love and compassion. You've given them everything that they need. And yet, instead of thanking you, which is sometimes what we expect, they actually turn around and treat you very badly. You know, often we see this in the case of parents and children, right? Parents give everything to their children. They really, you know, do so much to give whatever that child needs to grow up and to be successful. And sometimes we see children not being so kind towards their parents in response. So this is quite a common thing that happens. And when it happens and we're expecting some kind of thanks, and instead of that thanks we receive sort of difficulty and challenges in our lives, of course it's very easy to lose hope and to get angry and to give up on our practice. We would think in our minds, you know, I did so much for that person, and look at how they treat me in response. I can't take this anymore, right? So when this does happen, again, we should reflect on the similar things that Rinpoche already spoke about. So the fact that this person is an opportunity to better ourselves, is an opportunity to practice patience. So, you know, to practice patience, to increase your capacity for patience, you need to have someone that makes you angry, right? So it's good that you met someone that made you angry, right? This person becomes like a wonderful spiritual teacher to help you become a more patient and loving person. And then again, we should think about what is the mistake that I made in my life? What did I do wrong, right, that gave rise to this result? Did I treat that person in a way I shouldn't have? Or if you accept previous lifetimes, you know, did I do something in my previous lifetime that's giving a result, you know, giving rise to this kind of result? So thinking about things in this way can really be helpful when we encounter people who are difficult in that way.
신이 담아도 도는 거에 교회 팬딩 많은 거를 많이 내다 돈을 사면 담는 것이었어. 다 도드는 쉬이나 안다다 로아 넘버 3지 동행이 남는 쉬지. 동행이 남는 제제 쉬어야 그래서 됐으나 땀 전다 도도로 쉐비는 말씀제 탐제는 쉬지 거리 좀 그러셨어. 말씀제 탐제면은 아주 초토에 믿었어. 말씀제 탐제 거리는 단다부터 아주 기부 작업이 참 선제 거리는 되셨어. 다 맞아. 진짜 좋은 선제 다 배 야와도 되는 것이 동네 권도 저와 용쇼스. 아니 말씀제 탐제 루이나자 셈이 동네 아니 지금 이게 다 탐제 파트 잘하다. 다는 신기 아니 지금 이게 가서 란게 아니 지금 이게 왔다 만직과다 마다와 진이 되게 상물어도 소수규기 니모스네도 그봐 나 세야지 나 기와 나 대화 세야지 상마 디시를 샤는데 이게 되자 차도 공부 아니 상마 될 때는 이것도 세상 뒤보다 만직 마다 진이 상마 소수되셨어 세상 뒤 산에다 지금 이게 말씀제든지 대화도 때문에 오셨어 세상 뒤 아니 되게 가서 오라 말한주 규기 아니 지다 세수왕 아니 비게 다 가리려고 되게 말씀제 탐제 바편을 또 지금 오셨어 말씀제 탐제기 동네 나자 샘기 동네 위기 간에 다 상말 어디 아니 다 내가 수네 또 지금 오셨어 되게 딱
Now the 7th verse states, in brief, directly or indirectly, I will offer help and happiness to all my mothers. Here mothers means sentient beings. I will offer help and happiness to all sentient beings, and secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering. So what this verse is speaking about is a kind of practice in Buddhism known as giving and taking. So what one does in this practice is you give your happiness to others. You visualize giving all of your happiness to others, and you visualize taking all of their suffering upon yourself. And so then, again, this is based on the thought, this recollection that other sentient beings are extremely kind to us. So again, we think about how until now, everything that I experience and enjoy in my life, all of my happiness, ultimately comes from the kindness of other sentient beings. No matter what it is I make use of in this life, I wouldn't be able to make use of this had it not been for the work and efforts of others in my life. And so thinking about the kindness of others in this way, we then turn our minds to the fact that beings experience suffering, right? And on the one hand, we see that they suffer. On the other hand, we see that they're so kind to us. And naturally, the wish will arise to free them from the suffering that they experience. So when bad things happen to us, again, it's also very important to think about what we have done wrong. Generally, we say that, we tend to say that my suffering came from that person, it comes from that source, it's from outside of me. But if we look very carefully, suffering really comes from within. The basis of that suffering is a mind that sees ourselves as the most important thing, right? It's a mind of selfishness. When we have a mind of selfishness, all other negative states of mind can occur. So out of selfishness, we have desire and attachment, we have anger, we have jealousy, we have pride. Right? The root of all of that really comes from a selfish mind. And when we have that kind of selfish mind, as a result, we experience many negative circumstances in our lives. So really our suffering doesn't come from others, it really comes from ourselves. And when we see that, we look at other sentient beings and we see their suffering, we think about their kindness and then we wish to benefit them. And out of wishing to benefit them, then we cultivate a mind that wishes to take their suffering upon ourselves and to free them from suffering.
제가 가서 란진진 이거도 신대도 화배 시행 여와도 상반의 랑된 수배 아니 시행 제거든 라 여와도 되게 제거디 아니 지금 오늘 하선 넘버 타버지나 지금 로바 아니 지금 로바 개부 먹어 매버지나 하선 넘버 타버지 더 룩토지 아니 영토로 쇼스 되듯이.
Now the final verse states, I will learn to keep all these practices untainted by thoughts of the 8 worldly concerns. May I recognize all things as like illusions, and without attachment, gain freedom from bondage. So here, essentially, it's a sort of culmination of what we wish to practice in this text. And so what we wish to do is, of course, to remember the kindness of other sentient beings and to cultivate a mind that wishes to benefit them. We want to be able to take our selfish attitude, right, our cherishing for our own selves and our own well-being, and to transfer that sense of care towards others. So just as we care for ourselves, we should be able to take that same sense of care and extend it to other sentient beings. And in that way, neglect our own happiness in order to favor the happiness of others. So what we generally do is we favor our own happiness while neglecting the happiness of others. We want to be able to eventually exchange that, change that around so that we care about others more than we care about ourselves. And in this way, cultivate an altruistic attitude that is without deception. It's not something that we just talk about. It's something that we actually are able to engage and to make use of actively in our lives. And this is the practice that we should try to engage in it as much as possible. Now, when it says in the text or in the practice that one should exchange your sense of cherishing self or cherishing others and neglect your own happiness in favor of the happiness of others, this of course does not mean that you should not take care of yourself. So often when people hear this, sometimes they have a kind of a misunderstanding and think that they should give up everything and completely neglect their own happiness and give, only think about the happiness of others. So this is not the case. It is very important to take care of oneself as well. But what we want to do is when we speak about selfishness, right? What happens with selfishness is that you only think about your own happiness and you totally neglect the happiness of others. So what we want to be able to do is to make our concern for ourselves secondary to the concern for others. So it's not that you totally give up any concern for yourself, it just becomes of lesser importance in relation to a concern for the well-being of others. Buddhism recognizes that unless you're able to take care of yourself and to accomplish your own well-being, there's no way to accomplish the well-being of others, right? It starts with oneself. So it is very important to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, but to reduce your sense of selfishness so that others come first and then you come second. Okay, so that is a very brief presentation of the practice. So we covered a lot today, and Rinpoche would now like to allow for some questions.
From where does selfishness come in Buddhism?
Shengi Zawa de Rani Gogu Yubati, some Habo Che, Da, and Shengi Zawa de Ran Chogu, Chot Yubati, some Habo became it, what? Oh, D can be used.
So when we speak about selfishness, we can think about it in terms of the negative emotions of attachment and aversion, and primarily attachment. So when we have a selfish attitude, we're thinking about our own happiness. And this means that we have a certain attachment towards happiness for ourselves. We're attached to what's beneficial to myself and not what's beneficial to others. So that's one of the reasons why we have selfishness. Another one is you sort of not, neglecting others, not thinking about what they're going through. So a lack of empathy, a lack of being able to feel or to try to think about what others are feeling. These are all causes for the arising of selfishness. Is that clear? Is that okay?
Sir, you talked about the practical applications, how to love somebody. How do you begin to have compassion for your enemies?
다 자든지 아소래 디르와 나란주 다스 이게 나란주 상당한 데가 되지르스나 코피 코로코로 다포레 뭐니 이게 유대버리 상포워와 다차에 다 수수 서비스 와 당도들 다 소단 안되르스나 다 부디즘 토네시스 납송한다 내 저런만 안송 나란주 빌 네버 먹고 깨요스 나란주 다다시 챙겨 엄마도 밀세 또 크라임이라고 너무 제요스 디 디우디 추세요 말이스 트라드래요 말이스 지산 디 디우를 된 단단한 주다 용도 용신이 내단들이시스.
So, with regard to enemies, right? Generally, when we encounter someone that we consider an enemy, we seem to think that that person is somehow independently established, right, as an enemy from their side. But what we fail to think about is the fact that we make our enemies, right? We contribute to the creation of something that we call an enemy. So one way to think about this is again to reflect on our past lives, right? So the fact that we have an enemy in this life, someone that causes difficulties and problems in our lives, is something that has arisen from past actions that we did. So in previous lifetimes, we engaged in negative actions. We killed people, we stole things, we harmed others in many ways. And those negative actions have a result that stay with us through various lifetimes, and they become manifest as a result in this life. So when we have an enemy, this is something that could have come from a previous lifetime.
아니, 근데 지금 다른 인지가 돼서 공부를 하는데 자, 어쨌든 이 전에 다대양 지금 대화되고도 도면이 되고 차송을 했어. 그봐? 알아주다. 직봐. 아니 지금 그봐? 어쨌든 이 전에 다 지금 가서 오래. 다대양 알아주 제 디온 다체 뭐도 겨서로 뭐만 남수야. 라는 그냥 튕기 양을 되고 총이 어딨어. 진짜 되게 다 다대 알아주 지금 소바기의 유인이 되게 다들이 닝지기의 유인이 그봐? 닝지 전부 쓰고 와. 심지어 탐지 동네를 전화 찍어 와. 내게 삼바티 아니 삼배 유래야. 아니 다들이 거였어. 다음에 신 소바기의 유인이 다들 찾아왔어. 저 다들 아주 자주 찾아왔어.
Now, with regard to the second part of your question, how do we actually cultivate love towards an enemy? Well, one of the things that we can start off with is to think about how fundamentally your enemy is not that much different from you, right? They're exactly the same as you in wishing to have happiness and to be free from suffering. So on that basic level, you and your enemy are exactly the same. And then what you can, after you've established a sense of being really the same as your enemy, they having fundamentally the same wishes, desires, and goals as yourself, you can then extend that thought to thinking about this person is the same as me, and they are they're an object for me to practice compassion. They're an object for me to practice patience and love, right? So there's someone on the basis of which I can cultivate positive qualities. And so when we think about these Buddhist values of wishing to cultivate love and compassion, right? We talk about love and compassion. We also talk about great love and great compassion. So great love and great compassion is a love and compassion that's extended to all sentient beings, each and every single sentient being in existence, right? And when we talk about each and every sentient being in existence, that includes your enemy, right? So if you want to give rise to great love, great compassion, that includes everyone, you need to have your enemy there, right? Your enemy plays a very key, important role. And in that way, you can think about how your enemy is a very important cause for you to give rise to these incredible states of mind, right? And in that way, gradually, you can cultivate love towards your enemy.
잘 나네 치 조조 난게 다들스 치 다들 조 말스 난게 다 겨워서 통면이 시고레스 겨워서 치만년 소리 두고레스 아주 단데 단 로파시 할레는 로자 로주주 주시다레스 디에고 타고 템바케요 말스 다 제들 다 세면 조고차고 세면 다 제들 년치디야 조조 수수유 이몬데스 제가 산지 좀 되디 다니다 자이스 다니다 거인 소리스.
Something we can also reflect on is how in previous lifetimes your enemy could have been your friend, could have been your mother or your father, right? So there's this kind of lack of stability there. They were not always your enemy, and that's something that you can think about. Now, when we speak about enemies, we can also distinguish between inner enemies and outer enemies, right? So fundamentally, what's really of harm to us is our inner enemies, right? Our inner negative states of mind. An outer enemy is something that you may have for, say, the duration of your lifetime, at most, say, 60, 70 years, maybe if you really push it, 100 years, right? So we have these enemies that are for that duration. But the inner enemy of your negative states of mind, from a Buddhist perspective, is something that we've had since beginningless time, right? So from the very beginning, or the sort of beginningless nature of your mental continuum, you've had these negative emotions. And these negative emotions have harmed you, not only in this life, but in all your previous lifetimes. So when you think about it like that, the inner enemy is of greater consequence compared to your outer enemy. And so the Buddha stated that you are your own enemy and your own protector, right? We are, for ourselves, we have to take responsibility. We are fundamentally the ones that harm ourselves and the ones that can protect ourselves in the end.
Most time in lives, from childhood, some people are emotionally damaged, and this hurt go all the way to adulthood. And the tendency is hurt people. How can this be reversed, if possible?
This one is all. 다 로스 게 들어와. 로스 게 요에 또 돼. 알레기지. 세번 용받는 데서 세번 맞대고 돼. 너무나 제 민 hurt 치고 와. 띵 가르쳐 왔어요. hurt 맞지 않네. 다고 로스 게做的. 로스 게는 리베리베 세 공지 된지 봐. 안 로스 근데 야게 돼. 이것도 와.
So a person like that ultimately has to rely on methods that other people would have to rely on. It's the same essential form of training that one has to undergo. So it's a gradual training of the mind. So to cultivate good qualities, so recognizing when negative actions do take place, and gradually directing the mind towards something more positive. And it happens very gradually for everyone. For someone who has been hurt, right, carries hurt from childhood, could take longer. But it will happen, right? If you remain determined and you remain committed to the practice and the training, your mind will gradually change for the better. Okay, so we've been asked now to do a brief meditation with everyone. So generally speaking, we divide meditation into two types of meditation. There's something called analytical meditation, in which you're thinking about a subject, you're analyzing it and coming to certain understandings. And then there's a type of meditation known as placement meditation, where you're trying to cultivate mainly focus and concentration. So the analytical meditation, in a way, we've already done that, right? So thinking about these topics, coming to some kind of understanding that constitutes the analytical side. And so now we'll do a brief placement meditation.
다 범세디 조디 같이 오래 이게 심 예배미 거라 봐. 아니 빈 강 가서 오다 강투도 지버치 봐. 예배 처리야. 강투도 아니 봐 지버치 되라 이제 공스들이 쓰기서래.
So how should we understand meditation? What is the practice of meditation? We can generally say that meditation is the act of, as much as possible, focusing your mind on a virtuous object. So taking something good, something wholesome and positive as your object, and keeping your mind on that object without distraction.
이게 가서 오래 시라기 쌤 남수 뒤야야 아니냐 아니 우주모부터네 봐 아니 뒤야지 봐 가이스나 가란주 아니 루심이 디핀주 때때마치 아니 루디 쌤도 봤대 쌤이야 루디 때인데 유산에 아니 루디 쌤도 저치 못하고요 제가 루디 봐 별로지 하자고요 아니 쌤들 별로지 해야 돼 가보자고요 제가 디 유산에 아니 우주모부터네 아니 봐 가서 그러다 저롱 시대에도 딱 한다 지금 차님지만 쇠와 디톤에 샘디아마 흘럽나 아니 샘내자리야 봐 때문에 네트워크 내리고 있어요.
So once we've identified that meditation is the act of focusing the mind on a virtuous object, how do we bring the mind to focus on a virtuous object? The first thing that we need to do is cause the mind to be less focused outwards and to be more focused inwardly, right? And the way in which we do that is through a kind of breathing meditation. It's a kind of a preliminary meditation that you use to first settle the body, and out of settling the body, you're then able to settle the mind. So the body and the mind have clearly a very strong connection. In many ways, we can say that the mind is in some way dependent on the body, or the body acts as a support of the mind, right? So in order to calm the mind, it's good first to calm the body. And we do that with a breathing meditation. So we just settle ourselves comfortably in our seats, we breathe naturally, and we just put our minds on that breathing, and then gradually bring both body and mind into a calm state.
다디네 지난 가서를 디세지도 가지고래 르남남 주든데 세치 다디 아주 비게 드레초이나 아니야 우리도 와 아니 디바바 중세 고고체와 아니 미 바좀바 많이 체 미야 다음 많이 체 미 다나야 셈 요도 미 바좀바야 셈 여기 거와 진짜 디면 미 나질 때 아니 디바마 중세 고와 디 아니 나게 하게 이거 서울다 이마에 디바 중세 고체 니 나질 사야지 아니 단다 쉬는 신체 셈치 가서 친구 와 아니 제견도 자스 와 디 아니 야 지금 공대가 가주나 준데 자네 와 디 디스터번스 와 데 많이 하지 아니 샤도지 기종 쇼스 와 샤도지 기무 좀 쇼에 따디 아까서 르 장고 댄스에서 당고디 조금씩 되고 와 정말 못되나니 저런 딜리도 다다 샹투요 아니 다 샤도지 기종 쇼만도 지도 야가 될 수가 조금씩 되고 와 어떤 디스
So in terms of the posture that you should adopt when engaging in meditation, it's important to hold the body in a certain way. because body and mind are connected. And according to the traditional texts, they talk about something known as the 7-point posture, right? So we don't have to do all of this, the 7 points here, but essentially what's most important is to make sure that you're sitting up straight, right? And the reason why you want to sit up straight is to make sure that your body isn't moving around too much. If you're moving around too much, it can cause a disturbance in your meditation. And the advice is to slightly just tuck your chin in a little bit, like bring your chin close to your throat. And the reason that they do that is you kind of bow your head a little bit to adopt a stance of humility, right? So to reduce your own pride and to be more humble in the practice. And then with regard to your eyes, a lot of people are comfortable closing their eyes, right? You can also just open your eyes slightly. So the thing with closing your eyes is that sometimes what can happen is your mind gets a bit dull, right? We call that laxity. You could start falling asleep or dreaming or anything like that, right? So, sometimes they say don't close your eyes all the way, but also don't leave your eyes wide open because then you're more susceptible to distractions. So the advice they say is just to close your eyes just a little bit and if you can, sort of look kind of down your nose, maybe at the tip of your nose if you can, sort of at 45 degrees. So that's the posture you should adopt. Oh.
말한줄 아니 가서 오래. 아니 봐 흘르지 대. 선발 흘르지 봐. 그러봐. 아니 근데 아쉽다. 오주모 그러봐. 아니 나부 예반네 우야무. 아니 나부 예반네 되니 봐. 우마다. 나부 예반네 우야 되니 우차사 야 줘보지 돼. 아니 나부 예반네 나 드레지 유스터지처럼 있어요. 연반이 있어요. 연반이
So we start with a specific technique, right, in breathing meditation. And in this technique, what you do is you hold you put your finger to your right nostril, right, and you breathe in through the left nostril, right, and you should breathe in all the way completely, right. And once you've done that, you change over, right. So you close your left nostril and then you actually breathe out of your right nostril. Right, and you do that 21 times. Once you've done that, you swap over, breathe in through the right nostril, out through the left nostril, 21 times. And then you breathe in both sides, 21 times. And this is a very good way to calm the mind. Yes. The breathing meditation, this. So we'll do a very, very brief breathing meditation now, right? So you can just start by adopting the correct posture. Try to sit up straight and tuck your chin in a little bit. You can close your eyes or leave your eyes open just a little bit. And you can place your forefinger on your right nostril. And then breathe in through the left nostril. And move your finger to the other side. Close your left nostril and breathe out through the right nostril. Once you've done that, do it again. Right, close your right nostril, breathe in through the left. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the left. And exhale through the right. And as you do so, just feel your body becoming more grounded, more relaxed. Now we swap over, so close your left nostril and breathe in through your right. Okay. Inhale through your left nostril, exhale through your right. Excuse me, I said that wrong. Inhale through your right nostril and exhale through your left. Right? And do that 3 times. Now you can release both nostrils and just breathe in. Breathe in all the way and then breathe out. And feel your body relaxing and becoming more grounded. Breathe in again, inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So now I will read each verse of the 8 verses of mind training, and as I read them, try to apply them to your life. Think about them, try to integrate them, think about which people you can use these points in relation to. By thinking of all sentient beings as more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, for accomplishing the highest aim, I will always hold them dear. Whenever I'm in the company of others, I will regard myself as the lowest among all, and from the depths of my heart, cherish others as supreme. In my every action, I will watch my mind, and the moment destructive emotions arise, I will confront them strongly and avert them, since they will hurt both me and others. Whenever I see ill-natured beings, or those overwhelmed by heavy misdeeds or suffering, I will cherish them as something rare, as though I'd found a priceless treasure. Whenever someone out of envy does me wrong by attacking or belittling me, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others. Even when someone I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes, mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher. In brief, directly or indirectly, I will offer help and happiness to all sentient beings, and secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering. I will learn to keep all these practices untainted by thoughts of selfishness. May I recognize all things as like illusions, and without attachment, gain freedom from bondage. Thank you, everyone.
Master, would you do us the honor of a chant?
Yes, yes, right.
You want? No, you. Oh.
계절 남이 조장 동화 세죠. 동화 체. 주로 동화 체 있어.
So we'll end with a small chant, and we call this a dedication of our merits. So when you do something good, it's good to dedicate it to something positive, and that's what we're going to do now.
아니甚至탐지를 하는 와인다. 그래서
So today we're going to be dedicating all our merits to all sentient beings.
아니 고트디 that 상주 king of praise.
So Rinpoche will be saying what's known as the King of Prayers. It's a very beautiful prayer that he'll be dedicating on our behalf today.
장배 법을 지다 견보 나혼도 상보 태양 대신 대다 운예 제소 달로 진여와 대다 담제 rab도 뭐 두손 시베 여와 담제 예오 알라 초도 마바 다게 계획 자와 되고 정보 조조 rab도 뭐 장조 enjoy
Rinpoche will now be blessing. We have a small gift to give to everyone as a blessing.
But what you do is make a line and he will present you with the white cloth.
그러면 됩니다.